Hi there, my name is Toby, and on this channel I talk about the energy, the chi, the ether, the life force, or the force. And I talk about it in all different ways. And today I'm talking about it scientifically as ether physics. And it's very, very serious stuff. And today I want to talk about time dilation, how it works, what it is, how we can control it, and the limitations of it. You see, we do not have time travel. I've got to explain it to you. You see, I talk a lot about it. I've talked about alien technology, but we've got to understand ether physics in order to understand even alien technology. Because ether physics is universal. It will explain everything. That's why it's so beautiful. It boils down the universe into one simple thing. It's one field, one thing, ether. And everything is manifest from this ether. This ether interacts with itself and creates all phenomena. That's how it works. But modern science doesn't like it. They've dismissed it. And they've dismissed it partly because they want us to be materialistic. There's a reason for it. You see, the ether includes metaphysics, the soul spirit. It's a holistic science. It includes consciousness. And we have to. And the aliens will know that. See, the aliens will know the higher technology. But what is that? It's ether physics. So how does it work? Well, first of all, let's talk about what we've got. We've got Einstein's theory of special relativity that says that a moving object, time will go slower to one relative on the Earth. So this is a theory. It's a phenomena, a true phenomena. We can see it. We've done the experiments. We've measured it. All the GPS satellites going around the planet, they've got a correction, a time dilation correction. Because they go around the planet in an orbit, time is different for them relative to us. And they have that correction in there, time correction. And they've done it, put an atomic clock in a plane, an atomic clock on Earth, the plane goes round, when it comes back, you look at the two clocks, the plane's time has gone slower. So moving object time slows down. It's true. It's a real phenomena. So Einstein has come up with some theory to explain this. And it's called special relativity. But it's a theory that does not include gravity. It only works in a system without gravity. So already it's fundamentally flawed. There is no physical system without gravity. But yet he's created a mathematics that does not include gravity to explain it. It's fundamentally flawed. They know it. Even Einstein knew it. So he created another one called general relativity. And that's talking about gravity. So he's trying to explain gravity. And he says, well, there's no gravity. So he's true. There's no autonomous force called gravity. I explain it on this channel how it works. Gravity and magnetism are the same. And I explain in detail how they are. But just for now, he's got another theory about gravity. So what he says, gravity is space-time. So now he's included gravity and time, space and time. So he's unified space, unified time into one thing and called it space-time. And this thing bends. And that's what gravity is, goes down a hole in space-time. So yeah, it's another theory, but it's again fundamentally flawed because space is not a thing and time is not a thing. He's essentially made it into something real. He's combined space and time, both of which are nothing, so you can't do anything with them. But he's combined them and called them something, and then he says you can bend them. But you can't bend them because it's not a thing. You see, space and time is actually like a shadow. It's a shadow of the field. You see, there is only the field. All you can do is manipulate the field. The after effect of the field is space and time. But you can't do anything with the after effect. That's like the shadow. You can't do anything with a shadow. You have to do something with the thing. If you see a shadow is cast by a thing, if you move the thing, you'll move the shadow. You try and move the shadow without moving the thing, you can't. So space and time is not a thing that can be bent. And Tesla he was very upset by this. He has a lot of letters written to Einstein saying this space-time is nonsense. Please stop it. But I do believe this is also partially slightly manipulating us. They have to create a system that dismisses the ether, a science that does not include ether. So really, if Einstein is talking about space-time as a thing, he's really trying to talk about the ether. He's unified everything. into one thing, space and time. Well, that's the ether. But it's not quite the ether. The ether is everything. Universal balance, energy. A disturbance in that ether will create space-time. So space-time is really created from the ether, a disturbance of the ether. But it's more than that. A disturbance in the ether creates a field, the electromagnetic field. And the after effect of an electromagnetic field is space and time. The shadow of the electromagnetic field is space-time. It's only the shadow of the field. So we can only use the field, only look at the field, only play with the field to make any differences to space and time. Because they're not a thing. There's no timeline. That's why you can't go back in time or forward in time. There's not a thing called a timeline. There's no timeline. There's only the field. And the only thing that exists is the present moment. The present moment is the only thing that exists. Time is fantasy now. It's a memory. It does not exist. The past, rather, does not exist. The future is only an idea. It does not exist. It has not happened yet. It does not exist. You cannot go there. The past no longer exists. You cannot go there. Time is just a measurement of the change. It's us. We're looking at the changes that happen, and we're giving a measurement to it that we're calling time. If you want to go backwards in time, you have to undo all the changes in the universe. You cannot undo the changes. If you want to go forward in time, you have to accelerate all the changes in the universe. All the changes, the disturbance of the field that's going to happen. How can you accelerate all the changes in the field? You can't. There's no way. There's no such thing as a timeline. There is only the present moment that extends back into the past, but the past is now fantasy, and it extends into the future, but the future is now fantasy. We can only look into it with our spirit. Spirit is outside time. So spirit can look back in time because it has happened, but even then it will look back in time, travel back in time, but it will be subjective. You're not really traveling physically. You can have a look back there and see what you can interpret. And you can sort of look into the future, but remember, you can only look, you can only guess. It has not happened. Even in spirit, you cannot look into the future. But what you can do is feel the field and see what direction it's going, so you'll have an idea. And what you can do is rise above time. You can see all of time. And when you see all of time, you understand how the field moves. See, the field must always be balanced. If there's a movement this way, it must go this way. So you can see the whole totality of time, but you will not be able to put your finger on the future. There's no way. Because the future, an actual moment in physical reality, has not yet happened. See, physical reality, time is here. In spirit, there's no time. You see, so if you actually want to go into something in the future, go into time, you have to come into the physical world. Spirit cannot suddenly go into the physical world, into the future. It can only come to the present moment. I talk about this already, but today I want to talk about time dilation, because there is a relativity. Time is relative. There is a slight dilation. You can stretch it a little bit. You can compact it and stretch it a little bit. In other words, you can accelerate time, but you cannot travel to the future. And you can decelerate time, but you cannot travel to the past. A very important distinction. And aliens will know this. Aliens will know this. No alien is traveling in time either. Nothing can. How does it work? Okay, I've got to explain this to you. That again, it's the fundamentals of ether physics. The very fundamentals of ether physics can be explained by looking at a magnet, because this is a map of the universe. Everything in the universe follows this map. This is a map of creation. Now, we've created this magnet, but what is it? What have we got? In the middle is a point of inertia. Nothing. Infinitesimal point of nothing. From there, the field comes out and it goes round. And it goes through a line of inertia. It goes up to the top, down to the bottom. So from a point, extends a line. Okay? Very important. This is metaphysics. Geometry. A point becomes a line. This is the creation of the universe. The point of inertia becomes the line of inertia. In other words, the line creates, it extends from a point. It's diverging. And now we've got a potential of energy. You've got a north pole and a south pole, or a plus and a minus. It's not really a plus and a minus. It's an expansion and a contraction. But to all intents and purposes, one side is going out and one side is going in. So one side has got an expansion, one side has got a contraction. There's a little bit more detail to this, but let's just say it as simple as that. A point extends to a line, then the line rebounds into the field. It goes all the way around to create a sphere. But once you've got the sphere, it's a magnetic field created by this, but you've got a line, through a vertical line, north pole, south pole. So there's now a force all around it, but because we've got this force through the middle, around the sides, the middle point, a disk, is called the plane of inertia, and the plane of inertia is where the field is neutral. See, here I get pulled in, here I got pulled in, but here nothing. Here's nothing. So there's a plane of inertia in the middle. And you see this in the universe. You see, this is the sun. In the middle of the solar system is the sun, a point. But the sun is still magnetic. It's still got a north pole and a south pole. There's still energy working like this. And then because of that, energy is coming in and out this way. You've got a disk around it. The plane of inertia is where the solar system spins around the sun. And they call it an accretion disk. It's the same in a galaxy. Now we know in the centre of a galaxy is a supermassive black hole, and the galaxy forms around it in a disk. So the galaxy forms around the plane of inertia of a supermassive black hole, which looks exactly like a magnet. In the middle is a point of inertia, energy comes out the top and the bottom. It's so powerful, the energy comes out as neutrons, but it's so powerful, it's still a magnetic energy, which means it's got a plane of inertia. That's where the matter is just balanced. Because if it goes up, it gets pulled in. This point, it can just spin around like an orbit. That's how an atom works. A proton works like that. It's still got a polarity to it. A neutron is slightly different. A neutron is like an inert planet. Let's take the Earth. It's an inert planet. But it still has a point of inertia, a centre of gravity, and it's still got a bit of magnetic energy, north and a south pole. But say it was completely inert, an asteroid, or the moon, let's say the moon, completely inert. That still has a centre of gravity, point of inertia in the middle, but now the magnetic field is dominant around it. It's still got the same map. There'll still be a line of inertia, but you can't see where it is because the magnetic field is sealed over. So that you could call a neutron, and that's a planet. But a magnet is like a star, energy bursting out. So it's all the same map. But here's the important bit. The point of nothing in the middle is where the ether bursts out. There's no space and no time in that point of inertia. Space and time come out. The field emerges from the top, spirals out. As the field emerges, now space and time emerge. Space and time are expanding away. And at the other side is spiraling in. Space and time are contracting inwards, going back to nothing. So even here in this magnet, the universe, space and time is being created and destroyed all at the same time. Space and time is created, space and time is destroyed. But it's only because the field is being disturbed. You see, electrostatics, this line, this bursting out, that is creating energy. That means it's creating space, creating time, is expanding. Magnetism is the expansion. Magnetism is a field. A field requires geometry. It has a geometric shape. It goes off to infinity. A sphere. But that means space. You have to have space. As it expands, there's space. But space also needs time. Now you've got distance. It takes time. The other side, it collapses inwards. And you can actually see this. You can now already see time dilation. The closer you get to the point of inertia in this magnet, the closer you're getting to stopping time. You see, on the North Pole, you are accelerating time a little bit. It's expanding. On the South Pole, you are decelerating time a little bit. And you can literally see this. Light, there's a Doppler effect. I talk about it as well in the previous lecture on the ether, speed of light. But light will have a slight red shift at the top, a slight blue shift at the bottom. In other words, light is expanding away at the top and light is contracting in at the bottom. It's expanding away. There's a slight a red shift. The frequency has changed. At the bottom, it's contracting, blue shift. You can also see time if you're in seed germination. If you're growing things, and there's thousands and thousands of experiments about this. I'll leave the links below to the Ken Wheeler's channel. He talks all about this in great detail. Even seed, he's done the experiments. What you do is you put a seed on the top of the magnet and it will grow faster. You'll get better growth. You can see it. If you put a seed on the south pole of the magnet, it doesn't grow so well. It grows slower. You can actually see this. Ironically, the plants, you don't want the plant on here. The seed, you are accelerating time, it grows faster, gets it going. But when you've got a plant, if you put it on the top, it will age faster. Now the trouble is, you need such a powerful magnet to see this. We haven't got a powerful enough magnet. You can see it on one like this. It's more powerful. You put a seed on it. You have to do thousands and thousands of experiments to really see this, but they have been done. Thousands of people have done this, if you check out Ken Wheeler's channel, and proven it. So time dilation is caused by a magnetic field. Now, how can we actually do this in practice? Now, first of all, that's a stationary field. It's not really stationary, there's always a vibration happening. But now you can imagine, you can understand that when there's a field moving through another field. You see, we're talking about relative time. It's to do with movement. So the atomic clock going around the Earth is moving relative to the Earth. But something is moving through a field. It's moving through the field. So you've got a field interaction. You can imagine now, here's the magnet. If it's traveling through time, through space, traveling along, you've got the magnetic field coming out here. Time is coming out and going in. So if time is coming out this way, expanding, but it's moving through the field, there's a slight resistance, it's reducing that expansion. If it was this way round, traveling through the speed, it's compacting in, now it's getting more compacted, it's going to get more compacted in. So even a magnet traveling through space, it will have a slightly different effect whether you put the North Pole forward or the South Pole forward. Again, I don't know how powerful the magnet will have to be to actually do this test. I think you need an extremely powerful magnet, and then you put that round a plane around the Earth with an atomic clock on the North Pole or the South Pole, but it's got to be facing the direction of travel, and see what happens. And I've got an idea for another experiment, another way you could prove this, but again, you would need a massively powerful magnet. So powerful. So you need a super powerful magnet, maybe an electromagnet, but if we could find the free energy technology, we could have this. Then you put an ice cube on the North Pole of one, have another one, flip it over, put an ice cube on the South Pole. Again, the magnet must be super powerful, and then you time how long it takes for the ice cube to melt. So the North Pole ice cube would melt slower than would melt faster rather than the South Pole magnet, because the North Pole time is coming out, accelerating, South Pole is going in, decelerating. It's slowing down. Now the reason we cannot travel in time physically, so if I want to go forward in time, I've got to accelerate, I've got to go into the North Pole. Out of the North Pole, time is accelerating, but I've got to go into a point. I can't shrink down to a point. That's why I cannot go there. So you want to go in future, you've got to accelerate time, but you only can accelerate to infinite acceleration. You've gone into the point, you can't get there. And the same, I want to slow down time, I'm going backwards in time, I've got to slow down until I go backwards. I can't. I'm going in to a point. That's the only way. So we can't go that far. But what we can do is create a very powerful magnetic field around us. Again, this is what I'm talking about, alien technology. These guys are doing it, but they are not traveling in time. They are simply accelerating or decelerating time for themselves. There's still a relativity going on, but the relativity is created by a control of the field, the ether. Now let's tell you about there's a recent UFO, everyone's talking about it on the internet, an egg. I don't know if you've seen it, it's the egg-shaped UFO. And it's completely smooth. Some people think it's fake, some people think it's real, but it's a whistleblower. Serious people from the military are talking about it. So I think it's the real thing. I looked at that and I think, yep, that's real. You can see it has to be an egg, perfect egg. Why? This is the golden ratio. There's very important geometry required. This is ether physics. You see, even the magnetic field, the ratio between the North and South Pole create an egg. I can't explain it fully in detail, but essentially there's this difference of expansion and contraction. When you look at it in a particular way, you can see an egg formation between the North and the South Pole. In other words, the very magnetic field, the electrostatic and the magnetic, the ratio between them is governed by the golden ratio. That's why it's the fundamental formula for the universe. So if you're going to create a craft in an egg shape, you know it's to do with magnetism. It's etheric. And one side of the egg is going to be like the North Pole, the other side is going to be like the South Pole. And if you create this shape, this resonance, you are accentuating this effect. You're accentuating it. You see, you've got this effect here on a square magnet. If I create a pyramid magnet, North Pole at the top, South Pole at the bottom, what I'm doing is focusing the field even more. At the tip of the magnet is even more powerful magnetic flux. So I can have even more time dilation. If I put a seed on the tip of a pyramid magnet, it's going to be even more accelerated. You'll see it, you could prove this. But on the South Pole, on the flat part, it's reduced even more. But if I can do this as an egg, now we've got the fluidity, natural shape of the field to do with the golden ratio. The tip of the egg is going to have accelerated time. The base of the egg is going to have decelerated time. You see, it's always balance. If you're going to accelerate time, you also have to decelerate time. You have to do both. The ether is always balanced. The totality of ether is balanced. And we've got a sort of ambient time. There is a sort of ambient time. All of us on this level, we're a particular sized body. A particular sized body can only move at a particular set of speeds. All right? So that means there's a particular time that we can all feel. It's still relative, but we're not moving fast enough to notice it much. But when you go smaller, you can move faster, so now we can notice it. You see, and when you're bigger, you're moving slower, but you've got so much gravity, so much things going on, so much force pulling in, you can also notice it with large things. But our size is a sort of ambient time. So it's like a background time, but it's not really a background time. It's still relative to each one of us. You see, even where I'm standing on the planet, if I'm on the North Pole, I'll have a slight acceleration of time to if I'm standing on the South Pole. So slight you won't notice it, but it's there. So if you create a craft that does this, this craft is going to be propelled, and it's going to be propelled like this. The tip of the egg is going to be forward, has to be. That's like the North Pole of the magnet. But what they've done, remember I talked about in the previous lecture, alien technology, is they created a magnetic field like a ball around it. So it's got to be completely sealed, this magnetic field. So the whole thing is like its own universe. And that's why the craft has got to be perfectly smooth. Perfectly smooth, sealed over. So that the field is perfectly smooth. It becomes like a superconductor and it can slip through the field. But it's again like supersonic flight. If you have a supersonic flight through the air cuts through the craft. So you've got to wake. You see, the air cuts through this way, but as it goes behind, it will slip back again. So you have to have this aerodynamic feel. It's the same with this egg. You have to have an aerodynamic feel as it slips through the field. Because the field is interacting. As the craft moves through other fields, is a pressure wave in the field. So the very tip of the craft, at the very tip, there's going to be the maximum acceleration of time. Time is moving faster for the tip of the craft. At the back of the egg is going to be the maximum deceleration of time. So right at the back of the egg is going to be very slow. So the egg is slipping through the ambient time. You know, it's still varying the ambient time. But the tip of the egg is going to be faster. The back of the egg is going to be slower. So if the pilot is in the middle. The alien is going to be sitting in the middle of the egg still. Somewhere in the balance point. So in the balance point, for them, time is still pretty much ambient. But if the alien would go to the tip of the craft, you know, cram themselves right to the tip, sit right in the tip of the craft, time would speed up for them. So they're going faster and faster in time. If they go to the back of the craft, time slows down. So you actually have to know where to sit in the craft. It's quite an interesting idea. Quite an interesting idea. But it means you can accelerate or decelerate time to a degree based on the field interactions and based on movement, because movement creates field interactions. You see, and that in itself is creating energy. So they have to have, first of all, a field that levitates the craft, seals it over, so that it can slip through the field, it's independent. That's got to be so strong. Then you have to have another way of directing the field to create a point of inertia in front of it, so the craft is slipping towards it. And in fact, you see the craft, the egg shape, the point of no time is actually going to be outside the craft. It's not even going to be in the craft. So it's going to be right in front of the craft. So the craft is sucked towards it, like an egg sucked in. So the north pole of the craft is going to be actually outside. Very important. And the field slips around it to the back. And the slow point, the slowest bit, is going to be at the back of the craft. And the alien, the pilot, is in the middle, where he's still living in ambient time. Ambient time. So that's why it's relative, you see. He's travelling through space, through the ambient time of everyone. Now, and depending where he's sitting in the craft, he'll have a different effect. Quite interesting, quite interesting. So he's got to sit in the right place that when he arrives is virtually the same. Because the time is balancing itself. It's like that craft has become its own little universe. Time is happening in there, but time is always accelerating and decelerating as you go to a point. So you create a point in front of accelerating time, means you travel faster, and you point at the back, that means you have to have one at the back that's travelling slower. But the point at the back that is travelling slower is actually pushing you forward. It's just like slipping through, like I said, hypersonic speed. The point at the front, it breaks the sound barrier, but the weight, as it slips back, they have to have the aerodynamics, so it slips back, that also sort of pushes it forward. So that's the way it works. Totally different idea. Totally different idea. But we could do this in our meditation as well, you see. Like I said, in spirit, you can rise above time. You have to go to a point. You go into a point, into a point, into a point. That means time stops. That's the true unconscious mind, outside experience. No time. Disappear for a second outside time. Then when you come back, it's like you've been recreated. Like, where am I? What is this? Your whole mind, soul, spirit, your brain has been refreshed. It's like you're empty and you come back like a newborn baby. Where am I? So you can do this spiritually. It's the same thing. We've got a field around us. North Pole, South Pole. Time is extending out of us, but also collapsing into us. Very slightly. That's where space-time is essentially talking about ether, but they don't want to talk about ether. You see, so that's the problem they've got. They've got special relativity, trying to explain something about time, but doesn't include gravity, so it's no good. Then you've got general relativity, trying to explain gravity and time by saying space-time is a thing. Yeah, you're not. And you've got to go back to special relativity. Those two don't mix. And then you've got quantum mechanics, another theory, the very small world, and that's another theory. That doesn't mix. So they know it. Special relativity, general relativity, and quantum mechanics, none of those theories work together. Modern science will admit it. Ask any top one, they'll know. They want them to fit together. That's what they're trying to do. They want the grand unified field theory, but the only way they're going to get that is to talk about ether. And that's the grand unified field. So I hope this little talk made sense. Time dilation is relative, but it's created by the field. The expansion and the contraction of the field as it emerges from the point of inertia. And you can stretch it through the line of inertia. The line of inertia gives you the poles, the plus and the minus, where you can have a slight acceleration and deceleration of time. But you cannot go to the future. You cannot accelerate all the changes of the universe. You can only accelerate the changes inside a little bubble, or decelerate the changes inside a little bubble. And the effect of that bubble is still going to be different according to the field. So you might think you travel at a particular speed, that has the effect, yeah, but it depends what field you're traveling through as well. So if you're traveling near a black hole, it might have a more powerful effect. If you're traveling through a bit of just empty space, nothing, it'll have a different effect. But nevertheless, inside, if you can create a craft inside the field, you've got your own bubble. Then inside that you've got your own ambient time. To you it's all the same, nothing happening to you. So I hope this made sense, and I'll talk about this more in time. It's a difficult one to explain, but once you get it, it's beautifully simple. Aether physics explains all phenomena in the universe. They talk about particles going back in time. You're not going back in time. You've got energy collapsing inwards. It's time retardation, slowing down of time. But when you've got one going backwards, i.e. retarding, and something coming forward, those two combine and disappear. That's what they call antimatter matter. Forward particle, backward particle. It's not. It's energy expanding in time and contracting in time. So they're saying, well, it's forward and backwards. Yeah, it's not. It's acceleration, deceleration in time. It's still just energy. You have to understand the point of inertia for ether physics. They also call it counter space. Maybe that's a better word. Counter space. Space is disappearing. Counter space, nothing. It's counter to space. And the magnetic field creates space. So when you've got a magnetic field that is being compacted, space is being compacted. When you've got a magnetic field that's expanding, space is expanding. Magnetic field compacting, time is compacting. Magnetic field expanding, time is expanding. That's all you've got, because space and time are not a thing, they are an effect of a thing, the shadow of a thing. The field is the only thing, the ether, and the ether has a disturbance. And the disturbance of the ether we can call electromagnetism. So thank you so much again for listening. Please do leave me any questions or comments. I said, check out the rest of the series, Aether Physics, and do check out my homepage. Look through my playlists. You just click on a playlist and look through. Every talk is different. I've done so many different things. Something there must interest you. I come at this from so many different angles. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.